as you can tell, last of the cast. Some of you, most of you may know what that means. I have had some questions, although, from a couple of people, or three. I got a call and said, what does that mean? And so I went through and explained to them kind of what we were doing. And of course, it's exciting. I've got a lot of excitement about it. And so today marks the day that we can celebrate a milestone in the history of Jackson Energy. Okay, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Randy. He's got a few remarks, and then from there, there'll be a presentation. Eric will come and explain a little bit more about the cast.
Thank you, Joe. I tell you, first of all, I want to thank Joe and Monty and Pat. I guess Pat's not in here, Pat Berry, for putting this thing together. Great food and great fellowship. And no, everybody appreciates it. You noted, Joe, the logo, the last of the cast. Same thing, I believe it's on the T-shirts. I believe Cassandra, you're the one that you developed that as you've done for a lot of other rodeos for us and other opportunities, but we sure do appreciate that. That's another great job. Well, that is true. We're here to celebrate the last of the cast iron main being taken out of service, and I'm sure as most, if not all of y'all realize that for a utility the size and the age of JEA, that's a very big accomplishment, and it's something that really you don't hear of happening in very many utilities of our size and age. Although, again, as you all realize, we really haven't had that much of an operational issue with our cast iron over the years, but federal authorities are really coming down hard on utilities across the country to take cast iron out of the system. So if nothing more than just from a PR standpoint, I think that means a lot for us, and going forward it'll just mean even more to us. The reason we don't have cast iron is because of everyone sitting in this room, our engineering staff over the years, our distribution crews, our meter shop folks, and field service people. Everybody's played a big part in this. Really, it's not only not only us, but it's also, as I said before, it's people that have come before us. I believe it was back in the early '90s, wasn't it, Eric? That Charlie Crocker, who was my predecessor, he actually started the replacement program, and then Eric, I know you've been religiously following that program over the years. In fact, I'd have to admit that there were a couple of years there that when money was tight that I was wanting to pull it back, and Eric browbeat me to keep the money in, so I appreciate you doing that now. But so, as folks like Charlie Crocker and Gary Doris, I better not name any more names because I'll forget somebody, but the folks that came before us over the years preceding this. So again, I just want to thank everybody for the good work, and we'll just continue on and go from there then. And with that, I believe, Eric, you up next. I'll tell you one thing. Let me say this, Jim. We sure appreciate the leadership that you have exhibited, because again, without your leadership, we wouldn't have gotten to this point. So thank you for that.
All right. As Joe mentioned today, we're going to celebrate the end of an era. Just by a show of hands, I know a lot of you guys in distribution are new and young, but how many of you guys have ever touched a cast iron main in the past? So most everybody's seen it or touched it or dealt with it in the past, but it's pretty exciting today that we're celebrating this. One person that we didn't mention, this is Chris Coughlin's grandfather that came in off the railroad, but you notice the resemblance, the tall, lanky figure. But this was from 1931 when the Phoenix system was completed, I assume, because they're standing near a district regulator station after the natural gas system was brought to Jackson. Okay, a little history of the cast iron in Jackson and our system. Originally, cast iron was brought, we don't know exactly when it was installed. Before, I guess, around the turn of the century, the late 1800s, early 1900s, as a lot of you guys know, we had a wooden gas main distribution system from the manufactured gas plant over on Union Street. Everybody knows where that may be. That's over where the AMP, everybody knows where the AMP is and where the old Union Street plant is. That's where the manufactured gas plant was back in the late 1800s and early 1900s. We had wooden gas mains that originated out of that and went around downtown Jackson for street lights. That main was replaced at some point in time with cast iron. In 1931, natural gas came to Jackson with the Phoenix system. Phoenix was not anything other than the utility contractor's name. That was the name of the contractor, the Phoenix Utility Company, and they were out of Jackson, Tennessee. They installed the belt line, and they installed all the different district regulator stations that we had in the system at the time. We have originally, when the Phoenix system was completed, there were 26 intermediate to low pressure district regulators or post regulator stations. And originally we had about approximately 30 miles of cast iron originally in the system. As Randy talked a little bit about some of the issues and problems that cast iron has been, one of the interesting thing about cast iron was that it was installed in 12 to 16 foot sticks. And that joint occurred every 12 to 16 feet, and we've got, right here is a good example of a bell and spigot joint where the pipe was coupled together, and it's much like a water or a sewer line might be today, a ductile iron main be put together. But anyway, joints were done every 12 to 16 feet. Mark and Joe and Jared and I were talking the other day, and this was probably the first time we'd experienced a different gas composition change. When manufactured gas was produced in Jackson, it was a wetter gas, and when natural gas came to Jackson, it was a little drier, and so that caused an issue with leakage at each one of the joints. So in the 1950s, they began what they call a clamp program to clamp and seal all the joints and try to keep the leakage to a minimum. And I don't know, who knows how long that Bell program went on? Anybody know? Was still going on in the 80s. So I mean, for 30 years or more, they were clamping this pipe in the ground. Another issue, cast iron pipe was known to be brittle, subject to earth movement and breakage and cracking and stuff. And I don't know, is Tim Hobby in here? Kind of a funny story. When Tim had just started, he was out on a leak, and apparently it was a pretty bad leak, and the main had cracked and severed in two, and he was out with Rick Webb, and when he discovered the leak, Tim took off running. He was scared. He didn't know what to do. And Rick finally caught him and said, "Hey, don't run. If I don't run, it's not bad enough to worry about." So anyway, but anyway, it is brittle. Another issue is graphitization and scaling. We hadn't really seen that problem a lot in our cast iron that we've had. We did experience a lot of sediment for whatever reason. We'd see cast iron mains get full of sediment and dirt or whatever. I don't know. We tried to insert a camera one time on Royal Street, and you couldn't get the camera down inside it because it was, it was half full of dirt and sediment. Bad thing about it, also leaked. It not only leaked outwardly, but it could leak inwardly, meaning after a rain event, if you had a seal broken or a cracked main or something like that, water could infiltrate the main. So there was a big issue with, not having enough supply. If water got in the main and filled up the main or a service line, it could cut off, the supply to a customer's house. So we had to go out and pump drips after rain events, and there was a drip book at one time, and I don't know where that's at, and how many drips there were that had to be pumped. Does anybody know what that number was? It was a lot. It seemed like, I remember over on, I think it was Martha and Person Street, that area seemed to collect a lot of water, and we'd have to go pump that drip a lot. And as Randy mentioned, the issue, TRA and PHMSA started really pushing us to start looking at replacing the mains. So as Randy mentioned, Charlie, and I think Randy may have even been involved in this, we came up with the comprehensive plan to replace all of the cast iron in the system. It wasn't just a cast iron replacement program, it was a main replacement program whereby we would determine the areas that we would replace by looking at our leak data, our leak repair data, and then we'd also talk to crews and foremen and find out areas that y'all were experiencing problems and issues. So if we didn't have any specific areas that were targeted, we would just, by default, we would replace the cast iron in the system. We would do approximately 1 to 2 miles per year of main replacement. And when we started this, I was a lot thinner. I had hair, so it's been a lot of work going into this. And typically, we would remove one of the district regulator stations each year that we put in, or that was put in 1931. This is some information that I pulled off of PHMSA's website. Gives you some information about incidents. 10.2% of incidents occurring on distribution mains involves cast iron mains. What an incident is, everybody know what an incident means? It's a reportable incident to PHMSA, and it has to do with $50,000 in damage. It has to do with a death or fatality, or the unintended release of gas in 3 million cubic feet, 3 million standard cubic feet. If it's caused by our system, that's correct. It has to be on our side of the meter. Okay, if it's downstream of the meter, then that doesn't really apply to us. We go out on fire calls and stuff that we have to investigate and make sure that it's not on our side of the meter. So, good point. But anyway, this was kind of the last project that we did to eliminate the cast iron. This kind of shows the trend of cast iron that we've had in the system over the years. I think officially DOT required us to start reporting main by type in the mid-'80s, and so that was really the first report that we had, was somewhere in the mid-'80s, where we could differentiate the type of material or mains that we had in the system. Started, like I said earlier, with about 30 miles. Stayed flat until the early to mid-'90s, and then that's when we started doing the rehab projects in our system. As you can see, it's just kind of been a slow, gradual downturn since we started. I would point out that we started out using contract crews. We designed and laid out these projects using contract labor and contractors to do the work. But sometime in mid-2007, 2008, JEA crews then took that responsibility on and started doing the replacement work and the service replacement along with these. So you guys have done a great job in just getting these projects completed. This kind of represents our system as it is today. I think this is pretty close to what the final reports that Lynn and Wendy have worked on to get for us this year, but we got about 816 miles of total main in the system. As you can see, 360 miles of it still is steel, 454 miles is polyethylene. And you have to consider polyethylene. We didn't start installing polyethylene until probably what, the mid 80s, Chris? Something like that. Right at about 31,000 services. So that ends the kind of the historical perspective and portion of what I've got to say. I'm going to turn it over to Joe now, but you know, everybody in here played a hand in this process. It wasn't just one group. It was, you know, a whole company-wide effort to get this done. It was a great accomplishment to get it done. I appreciate everybody's help in working through this. You know, it's a team effort to get this type of work done, and it's a milestone that, you know, hopefully we don't have too many more milestones to overcome, you know, in our, you know, next 20 years. But this one was huge to get it completed. So I'm gonna turn it over to Joe.
Okay, thank you, Eric. This next slide shows leak history by grade, and we're going to talk about leaks. That's been one of the big things over the past several years as well. And cast iron was a big part of the leaks that we had in the past, and we thought it'd be appropriate to tie this together. And so with this slide, we're looking at leak history by grade. And if you look, we have those indicated, color-coded by grade of leak. And if you look, 2011 and 13 was our high years, but you can see since 08 how we trended up. That was back when gas, the content of the gas changed. It was drier, and we had coupling leaks, and that's when it began to trend up. So looking at that, you can tell that we started trending down in 13, and we'll talk more about that. Okay, this slide right here is interesting to me. I'd ask Jared if he could go back and pull some data from years, previous history of leaks. And as I looked at this, I thought this was very interesting, because you look at the miles of main that we had back around 1970. Looks like about 275 miles of main, but look at the leaks that we had. It looks like probably about 775 is what we hit, probably in the 72, 73. And I told Jared, I said, it looks like to me we had more gas going out of the system than we had flowing through it. So that was kind of amazing. I didn't expect that. I thought that's pretty amazing. But as you can see, late 70s, early 80s, we were kind of flat on main installation. And then we began to trend upward mid 80s, and our leaks trended downward. As we moved on through the years, through looks like 96, our leaks trended upward a little bit. We continued to install main. But the thing about it, our leaks were down, and I got to thinking, over the years, we had a lot of leaks that was on record. I mean, they were stacked up. I can remember that we never got close to getting caught up with leaks, and I couldn't understand it. But now, looking back on what we had, if you're holding 800 or 775 leaks, it makes sense why we had a hard time keeping up with those, because back in the early 80s, we didn't have the equipment we got now. It took more It took longer to work leaks where they were clamping bell joints back to the cast iron. A lot of those leaks was due to the cast iron bell joints leaking. So it makes sense now after looking at this graph why that we were in the situation we were with leaks years ago. Okay, good. Number of leaks per day. I went back and looked, back from 2010 to current, February the 19th, that's today. I looked back on history on where we were with leaks, and this is a graph that shows where our leaks were, or what I was holding year to date on February the 19th. And you can see from 10 we trended upward. 13 was our big year, and now we're at 2016 today, February the 19th. That's where we are year to date. So we have trended downward, mainly due to the fact of the cast iron replacement and the aggressive work that the contractors have did on the service replacement, dresser couplings, and things of that nature. Okay, we've talked about this a little bit. The first time we ever reached a zero balance of gas leaks occurred on a Friday, November the 19th, 2012. In my mind, that was another milestone we hit. I don't know that that's ever occurred in the history of this company. So, with that is due to the fact that the aggressive work that people before us have done proceeded up to this point, and the work that everyone else did with engineering, field service, distribution, meter shop, everybody working together as a group to accomplish this. And so we made it. 2012, we hit a zero balance. That year we worked a total of 411 leaks to date to accomplish that. Since that time, these are some dates that we've hit a zero balance on leaks. And you can see in 2014, we hit a zero balance 4 times. In 15, we hit it 4 different times. Now, if you remember, 2013 was our big year. We didn't make it that year. I think we were in the 568 leaks or something like that in 13. And so we didn't make it, but we were able to accomplish that in 2014. Okay, this last slide is something that's exciting. I don't know, this is something new. 2016 is the first year in which March 18th is Natural Gas Utility Workers Day. Is that not exciting? That's us, guys. They've talked about this, APGA has talked about this for some time, and finally nailed it down, and got an email this week that they had announced this. March 18th is the date of the New London, Texas school explosion in 1937 that led to the widespread odorization of natural gas and an increased emphasis on safety. This annual nationwide event is intended to build public awareness about the hard work done by the employees of natural gas utilities. So, each year, that'll be something to celebrate. That's you guys, that's for the work you do, and it's exciting. I'm really glad that they were able to nail that down. And so, it's even better that, that Randy is going to approve that. I just know it. He's just so excited about that. But that's something to celebrate, something for you guys to remember. It's something to talk about, and because of the work that you all do.
Okay, I wanted to take just a second to say something. Joe is not going to seek credit at all, but as he talked about, this was a big deal, and y'all don't realize, for years, ever since I was here, ever since I've been here at JEA, that's 27 years now, we've gone through a period of time where we're always carrying a balance of leaks, okay? And Joe, when he became superintendent, made the decision that he's going to have a philosophical mindset or paradigm shift as far as how we look at leaks and what we're going to do with them and how we're going to treat them. And we're going to repair every leak that we have. So you guys are living in a new era compared to how we used to do things, okay? So it's different. And our company's safer, our customers are safer, our perception is going to be greater or better in the community. And I just wanted to say thank you, Joe, for changing that mindset and culture that we've had for so many years. So.
Joe, we don't want to think that there are leaks in a gas system, but there's been a certain tolerance of that. Safety, I mean, it doesn't compromise the safety, but you set a whole new goal for this operation.
That's right, Steve. What we've done is we made it a goal to work leaks and eliminate leaks from our system. Cast iron being one of the things that caused a lot of the issues over years, not only with our utility but others around the country. And so we made it a goal and a priority to start eliminating our cast iron, replacing it with new mains, and just beef up the integrity of our system by doing that.
How long have you been working on that?
I would say we've hit it. We've been working on it hard for about the last 25 years. We started years ago when we realized that it was causing an issue, and so with that, we put a plan in place, and we started working to eliminate the cast iron. And then once cast iron was eliminated or winding down, we began to focus on leaks in general. And that's when I decided that we would hit those aggressively and work those and get them down to zero balance if possible.
I guess if there's anything that's gone through evolutions, the gas system has, because the old pipes were wood. I saw back years ago when they first started doing natural gas. I guess they created the gas.
That's right. Yeah, years ago it was wood, and we found several pieces of that within our system. We currently have some on display. The employees have some in their offices, and it's something that's unique to find that many people haven't seen over the years.
Yeah, and they made the gas or burned what? They burned coal or whatever to create it.
They did. That gas was manufactured at the old plant down on Union Street years ago,
Which is where the farmers market is now. The farmers market offices are.
That's correct. It's the amphitheater, the farmers market. That building right there is where it was manufactured, and then it was sent out to the city, and mainly to burn street lights for the city downtown area.
Well, it's a great history. Congratulations on this.
Well, thank you so much, Steve. I appreciate that.
Randy, the significance of this, when you look at this from your perspective as the senior vice president of this operation.
Well, the main thing is that it's such a benefit to our customers from a safety standpoint. Although we never did have historically had a lot of operational problems with cast iron main. It's just that cast iron historically is some of our oldest pipe, and anytime we get that out of our system, it's more safety conscious for our customers, as well as it just allows our system to be more efficient.
Was cast iron kind of the standard for the industry when it was first utilized? Is that the way that most pipe was done?
Well, back in the early 1900s, late 1800s, yes, it was. Welding really didn't come into prominence until at or just after World War II. And so those bell and spigot joints were kind of the way to go. Okay.
It's interesting to see how it's evolved now, how the technology has changed everything. The piping now is done how?
With polyethylene or plastic. We do put some steel in for high pressure systems, but most of it, the majority of our new pipe is polyethylene or plastic pipe.
Well, congratulations on this. I know it was a real team effort.
It surely was, and again, not only with the folks that are working here today, but JEA employees, JUD employees from 30, 40 years ago. So it's been a group effort for the last 40 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Steve.